Warning. This podcast contains explicit sexual language and should only be listened to at work if you're looking for an excuse to connect with your HR representative. Additionally, all mentions of the word women include cis and trans women. If you are genderqueer, gender fluid, figuring it out, anything in between, and feel like this conversation is also important for you, you are welcome here.
Will you open up with me? These pages, they can feed your innermost desires. Do you feel inspired? Are you getting what you need? Are you coming curiously? A secret safe with me. And here you can simply be yourself. Jace reads romance. Come on in, come on in, come on.
Hi, y'all. This is Jace, and you found a book club episode of Jace Reads Romance. Fair warning, we will spoil everything. So if you are someone who doesn't like to have a book spoiled for them, press pause and come back to this episode at a later date. Hopefully you like the book just as much as we did. So far, we haven't read any books that we didn't like, so we've got a pretty good track record. Enjoy. Hi, y'all. This is Jace, she, they, and you found Jace Reads Romance, a community dedicated to empowering women about sex and sexuality through the reading of romance novels. It is a book club episode! Yay! And I have voluntold a friend of mine to be here. I know, I'm real mean like that. And I'm really excited. I'm so excited for this book. The book is I'll Have What He's Having by Adib Khorram. And I have voluntold my friend Lisa. Lisa, would you like to introduce yourself to the humans who listen?
Sure. Hi, I am Lisa, and I'm a friend of Jace's. And I'm actually really excited to be here and get to talk about books because I love talking about books.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Before we jump in, do you want to give five, or not five, why did I say five? A short introduction of your journey with romance, what you love to read, what your vibes are, etc.
Sure.
So people know a little bit more about you.
A little bit more about me. So I got really into reading in 2021 during the pandemic. I have dyslexia, so reading was always a struggle for me as a kid. So really amped up my reading now as an adult. And I read, oh man, I read a lot of romance. I think Allie Hazelwood was my first into that. And I think I've read at least over 250 romance books since 2020, probably more than that. And so I read the gamut. I read, contemporary rom-coms. I read, fantasy romance, Shifter Wolf, Omega verse. I'll read any and all of it. So that's how I got into reading romance and kind of haven't stopped ever since.
I love it. So we read I'll Have What He's Having. I read the physical book, and I believe you listened to the audiobook primarily.
I did a little bit of immersive reading. I did where I would read in the book as well, and I annotated just a little bit things that I thought were interesting. But I did the audiobook and it was phenomenal.
I love that. We've talked about my love-hate relationships. Do you want to do a really high level what this book is about, or would you rather read from the back?
I could do a high level. I could do, it's but also I'm one of those people that finish a book and I'm like, wait, who are the characters? So,
it's so real.
It's so real. But this one is two men in their later 30s, which personally love that. And they're both at very interesting points in their lives when they meet, and it's a, I'm gonna say it's a burn cute.
Yeah. Yeah.
And mistaken identity, but nobody's real fault gets resolved really quickly. And it's them trying to figure out what they both want in life while also, having some fun on the side with each other and
Hmm.
getting to know each other. But yeah, each of them is wanting something very specific for their lives, and they're kind of at odds with each other because they're both going in very different directions. And yeah, I don't want to spoil the end, but
Oh, we're gonna
not that
spoil the
there's.
end.
Oh, go
Like,
ahead, go ahead, spoil
oh,
it.
we're gonna spoil the end. Sorry. I don't didn't disclaimer for you because there is a pre-recorded disclaimer for our listeners that I will spoil the ever-loving shit out of this book. Like
Well,
you
you'll
don't get to
spoil
walk
it for
away
the
not knowing.
blurb.
Like
Yeah.
like they will leave knowing this book intimately.
Yes.
I love this. So I know Adib Khorram. I've been following him for a little while. This is his first adult romance. So a lot of romance. There's a lot of romance out there, but most of it is written by women for women. This is a romance, an romance written for gay men by another gay man. He originally started with YA. This is his first adult romance. And I was so excited to read an romance written by a gay man. I, I don't know. How did you feel about that? I think you
I was
read
very.
more than I do.
I do. I'm a huge fan of AJ Truman. I've read almost all of his stuff, and there are some other um, authors who are men who I've read, and both cis and trans men. But what's interesting about this is a lot of them that I have read have happened to be white.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was really interesting to have two non-white male characters,
Yeah.
and to get to, you know, see, their lives and the worlds that they live in, which is, it's different. It's the same world, but they're different experiences. And I
Mm-hmm.
really loved it.
Yes. I think the first thing that we're going to tell you is we fucking loved this book. Like,
Yes.
both of us.
I devoured it. Like all of the food that they devour in this book, I devoured
Mm-hmm.
this book.
There's so much food in this book for a lot of reasons, and it's all fucking delicious. It just this book was so romantic. It was so romantic and beautiful, and I teared up with joy at the end of this book.
Absolutely. No, same. And I kind of wish, how some places have like candles that smell like characters. I wanted scratch and sniff stickers for like every chapter for what the food smelled like.
Yes.
Because it's so descriptive, and it goes into, it's not just the food, it's the wine, it's the drinks,
Yeah.
yeah, he's trying to become a and a sommelier, and it's the way that they describe everything through taste is, I don't think I've read a lot of other books that go as deeply
Into
into
the food
food.
experience,
Yeah,
which is something that these two definitely bond over their love and appreciation of food and beverage. So as Lisa said, David, who is one of our MMCs, he is a Black man. This takes place in Kansas City, and he is studying for his master's somm. Huge deal. So he's head of wine and beverage at a wine bar. He's studying. His whole life is preparing for this test. His whole life is wine, is what are the tastes? What is the nose? What is the feel? What is the color? It is so integral into his existence. He's been studying for months. And then we have Farzan, the other MMC, who's Iranian. And he, at the beginning of the story, and through most of the story, but feels like a fuck up. He studied to be a teacher. He got burned out after a number of years. He's been substitute teaching for a while and working at his family's restaurant ever since. His parents announced that they want to sell the restaurant, and he says, no, I want to take it over. I want to cook. I want to share food. I want to keep this place of Iranian culture in this community. It's important to me. And they're like, really? He goes, yeah, I just hated being your employee, basically, in his brain, not out loud. He's too respectful for that. And so Farzan is dealing with a lot of food. His love language feels like acts of service and cooking and feeding. So he deals with, we see a lot of recipes. We see the food that he cooks and he eats and he enjoys. And there's a lot of indulgence of food around and drink with both of them. And it's so felt like immersive or tactile almost, like, oh, the soup that you're describing and the noodles and the rice and the tajig and all of that.
And it also feels like food is the love language throughout this
Mhm.
entire book.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about something, and I don't know if you want to talk about it now,
Yeah.
but one of the things that you mentioned about was his burnout as a teacher and
Mhm.
what he went to school for. But David also was completely
Yeah.
burnt out in his previous job. And what I find really interesting is that he goes right back into burnout mode in his new career.
Mhm.
The way that he's pushing, the way that he has completely cut himself off
Yeah.
from, being social and enjoying life. He's started to burn himself out just in a completely different profession. And I think it's really fascinating to talk about people in their mid to late 30s and what happens when you've already had a career and now you're at this new turning point where it's like, what do I don't want to do that for the rest of my life. What do I want to do now? And this just, I mean, I'm in my late 30s. This felt really personal and really relative. And
Uh-huh.
that's the other part that I absolutely loved about this book. Because there aren't a lot of stories about, a lot of times when you see someone in their 30s in a romance book, it's like an age gap. It's like, well, he's
Yeah.
35 and she's 28. And it's like, okay, but what about us? We deserve
We
books
deserve
about
love.
us. Yeah, and we deserve books
Yeah.
that are about our experiences as well. And I really loved this for that.
It's so funny because I was just sent an article today about what does the millennial midlife crisis look like. And it's
It
this.
looks
It
like
looks like this. It's the mid to late 30s. It's not a guy, dyeing his hair and getting a Corvette and trying to be young again, because millennials never had that to begin with. Like we haven't been married for 15, 20 years in our mid 30s. We're still
maybe you
single.
have, but you're still thinking maybe
Like,
the career I chose when I was 23 doesn't work for me anymore at 37.
exactly. The
I'm a
people who
completely different
were
person.
the people who were in their 30s in like the 90s when that idea of the midlife crisis came to be, they were born in a completely different economic environment. Their career trajectory was very different than millennials, and that therefore how we experience aging and our mental burnout and all of that stuff is so different. And I will link that article in the show notes. For these two, they're at a very pivotal moment, as you were saying, in their life. Farzan decides to completely shift course and take over this family business. He's never run the business. He's not classically trained. He didn't go to school for cooking. He's just learned by his father's side. And then so he's jumping into this completely new adventure he feels absolutely unprepared for, but passionate about. And then David has put everything into achieving the highest level in wine ever. He was a finance bro, which should tell you something, and experienced burnout, and then went into wine and was like, well, I'm not just going to be a wine person. I'm going to be a master som. It's years of intense work. And both of them have their own mental struggle. As you were saying, it's for David that burnout, constantly being reminded by the people in his life that he isolates himself, that he pushes them away, that he's not open to relationships or putting effort into the relationships. And for Farzan, it's this belief that he's a fuck up at heart. He didn't follow the expected path of a lot of immigrant parents. He's not a doctor. He's not a lawyer. He has siblings who are much more successful and married and partnered and all of that. So he feels like a failure in that way. All right, I'll pause. We have said Psalm maybe once or twice already. We mean sommelier, who is a person who knows wine. Like, that's a really
A
dumb way
soft
to
is
say
not
that.
a soft. It's not a soft dom.
It's not a, oh.
I mean, maybe James it
Amazing. No, a sommelier is a wine expert, and there are levels of education and skill that you can achieve as a sommelier. And like with anything, when you're accredited, like the higher the level you are, the more prestigious a restaurant you can work at, a vineyard you could work at, a wine bar you can work at, your salary is higher because you have been recognized at having an incredibly high level of skill and knowledge about wine. So that is, oh, but no, he mentions in the master, it's also beer and liquor. So it's
Yeah.
all liquor at the end at the master level. So you
Maybe a
know a lot
soft dom.
about booze and maybe a soft dom too.
Maybe a soft dom. Oh my god.
Oh my gosh, that's perfect. That was perfect. Can we talk about the mistaken identity? Because that is
Yes.
one of the tropes that just in my soul, I get so uncomfortable and such secondhand embarrassment that I quite literally texted you because you finished it first. And I said, please tell me that this gets resolved quickly because I can't handle it. And you
Yeah.
had to
I,
tell me the page number.
I did. I went and I did the audiobook, but I own the book and I was like, okay, when does that happen? And I looked at, I think it's page 48. It happens. And I was like, it happens before page 50.
And I was like, great, I can handle that. I can handle that so hard.
But what I like about it is that it's not, he never calls him Frank to his face.
No.
There's nowhere he's like, oh, he thinks I'm somebody else. I'll just keep playing along. I think
Yeah.
that's usually what makes the trope worse is that
Mm-hmm.
somebody actually is being deceitful in some
Yeah.
fashion. And I think it's actually really smart to have it be that he was like, well, I'm just going to give a white guy name because nobody
Yeah.
can say my name. If like Starbucks can't do it,
Uh-huh.
I just have a name that I use, and I think that that's important culturally for especially
Yes.
for white people to be aware of that like your your resistance to learning how someone's name is pronounced or to ask somebody, could you just repeat that? I want to make sure I heard you correctly, or I
Yeah.
want to make sure I'm pronouncing it correctly. That dismissal and not doing those types of things causes people in other cultures to just say, fine, I'll give you a name that you would feel comfortable pronouncing. And I think that it actually says something pretty profound um, to make the mistaken identity be because of
Yeah.
that.
So just to clarify the plot. So what happens is Farzan has just been essentially ghosted by his, like, they're dating. It was their third date. And he goes to a new wine bar to get wine and French fries. His breakup food. It's loud, it's chaotic. He's trying to give his name to the hostess. He says Farzan, oh my gosh, how do you pronounce his last name? Olavi twice. And she has said, what? Back. And finally, he just goes, Frank Allen, which is the name he's been using as his Starbucks name, as his white people
Well,
name
actually, isn't
for
there something
college.
right in between there where he notices a group of what, four white guys sitting at a table near, or I could be misremembering that. He sees a table right nearby, and instead of getting into it after seeing this table,
So can I get a name? Farzan Alavi, he, him. Sorry, a group
what
of
page
four
are you
suited
in?
lawyer-looking bros at one of the tables had just started arguing about last Sunday's Chiefs game. He tried again, but another one of the bros shouted, no fucking way, at the top of his lungs. Farzan sighed. Frank, he shouted. Frank Allen, he, him. It was his default white person name. And so he gave this white person name. He goes to the bar, he gets a drink, and it turns out that Frank Allen is the name of a food critic. And David, who is head of the wine bar, he's in charge of the cellar, sees the name Frank Allen on the list of people waiting for a table and goes, fuck, the food critic is here. I've never met him, but I know the name. We've got to get him a table. I'm going to send him over wine. I'm going to send him over food, and essentially wines him. And Farzan has no idea. He just thinks the most beautiful man he's ever seen, David, is flirting with him. And you are correct. At no point in any of their conversations does David refer to him as Frank. They just talk, they flirt, and eventually Farzan invites him home. During their hookup, at some point, David says Frank, and Farzan goes, what? I don't know. What?
And it's after they've hooked up, which makes
Yeah.
it even funnier. Page 46.
And it's very chill. And David goes, you know what? You're right. I didn't check. And Farzan said, I'm so sorry. I forgot when I came back to Kansas City that there's a food critic. I didn't even think about it. I've been using this name since high school. And it is so fucking chill that at the end of that chapter, my note was that was the right way to handle it. Loved it.
It's really well done. Like,
Yeah.
and I think there are some authors that are really good at writing, taking tropes that you don't like and flipping them on their heads in a way that you're like, oh, that feels fresh. That feels not wrong in any way. One that I always love, there's I personally hate the the surprise pregnancy
I
trope,
hate it.
or the secret baby trope. But
I-
Elsie Silver does it in one of hers, and it's my favorite book of hers. I don't know how she did it, but she made me love a book and love two characters that this happened to. And there are a couple of others who have done that. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't understand how you wrote something that has been done over and over and over again and made it feel fresh, made it feel new, and made it not feel slimy.
Yes. Yes. I think, and that's one of the beautiful things about romance is even though it's the same tropes, this is a mistaken identity trope. It's done in a new way. It's done in an exciting way. It's done in an authentic way to these two humans who I think both understand that the mistaken identity was not intentional and not harmful, but then said, I genuinely have a connection with you. I don't care that it started from this mistaken identity. I like you. I'm attracted to you. What we just did was fun and sexy, and I wouldn't mind doing it again and again and
Yeah.
again and again.
What the only part that I thought was interesting during this was kind of how quickly David goes, well, I can't hook up with a food critic too. I'll hook up with a food critic.
To
Because at the
me, it was a
beginning,
bit
he's
of a
like, well,
fuck
he's
it moment. It was a bit of a fuck it moment, which is one of my favorite micro tropes. So I was fine with it.
But I also think part of the reason why it works is because it really drives home the fact how attracted he is to Farzan.
They are
That like
so hot
they
for
are
each other.
they are so
So hot.
compatible. Yes. And also, it's kind of like a surprise that, like, this person who he thought was a food critic, who
Yeah.
knows a lot about food and a lot about
Mm-hmm.
wine, is just somebody who knows a lot about food and a lot about wine.
Yeah.
And he's like, wait, you're just that cool?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It when I
I think it really works.
they work. It's so fucking romantic. It's so fucking romantic. And when Farzan decides to take over the restaurant, he comes to David and he says, "Hey, I've never worked in management in a restaurant. Can I run ideas by you? Can I talk to you? Can you explain things to me?" And even talks to you, made escrow sound like he made me understand escrow for the first time ever. Like, these two genuinely like each other so
Yeah.
much.
Just like kind of like this felt like it's hard to say that this is low angst because you are like, how is this going to resolve through the entire book? But there's
Yeah.
something so cozy about this book. And I
Yes.
think it's because like every time they go to each other's places, like it feels cozy. There's food, there's wine, there's cuddling on the couch, there's watching these movies, falling asleep on each other. Like there's just such tender moments
Yeah.
throughout that even though it isn't quite low angst, it still somehow feels low angst.
I think there are big life circumstances around both of them, but neither one of them is in dire straits,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Like, okay, well, what happens if David doesn't pass his master psalm? He takes it again in a year. What happens if Farzan can't keep the business open? It sucks, but he can go back to substitute teaching, and his parents were planning to sell anyway.
Yeah,
It
it's not like
was,
his parents they want to keep the restaurant,
yeah,
but they're not getting enough people in and they think they might
no,
have to close. It's none of
no,
those things.
it's none of those things. So it makes the stakes of the other parts of their life really easy to understand. And their relationship also feels very safe. Like, yes, emotionally devastating, but it's not romantic suspense. They are kind to one another. There's no big hurt. It's not a second chance where you cheated on me with my sister. Like, whatever it is. It
Yeah.
is so, I think this is the, but I feel like there are a lot of books and movies and things that are being made with marginalized voices at the center that are almost remakes of movies that they weren't able to see them in, or books that they
Mm,
weren't able to see themselves
yeah.
in. And it's not that that's wrong, but a lot of the times those big holes in our heart and in our seeing of ourselves came in adolescence. And I've noticing a lot of those movies, a lot of those books feel either are YA or feel very adolescent. And Flirty Dancing is one of those that feels adolescent. I said to Seffi, summer camp vibes. And she was like, is this adult? I'm like, no, it's adult and zero spice. And I'm mad. But this did not feel like it. This felt like the story and the healing and the representation for the humans now that missed out on it when they were kids. It's not healing that
Yeah.
teenage heart. It's for the millennial now to see themselves as they are now in the story with the same low stakes or low angst or low drama or low fear of, life or death that we had in those teenage rom-coms. Like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen in 10 Things I Hate About You? Are you going to go to prom? Like, it's not a big a deal.
Is
But
your sister gonna date the guy
yeah.
who you had sex with for the first time?
Yeah, exactly. So like those stakes emotionally like definitely hit, but they're safe.
Yeah.
There's a sense of safety there. No one's really in peril. I have so many notes. I'm just looking through my notes. I have hearts.
So
Yes, this convo makes me weep with joy.
can we pause for just one second
Yes,
because we did briefly talk about this when we
yes,
saw each other
yes.
earlier this week. And
Uh-huh.
I said that after I was done, I went and I was like, I'm curious. The people who did not rate this 5 stars, what were their problems with this book? Because I want to know, why did you not like this? And
Because you're wrong.
I
No, I'm kidding.
it
You're
was
not wrong.
interesting. Quite a few people, and we can
Yeah.
discuss this more, but we talked about it. A few people were like, they seem like in their early 20s. Like you should have your life together. Like it felt very like they were saying that people in their late 30s should have all of their shit figured out, and that these people seemed very young and it didn't feel like that they were in their 30s, and this felt very I need to hang on. I need to actually find one because it made me so mad.
It's
And
so
then
funny, and
I
I'm
wrote
sure
a
with
whole
some
thing.
like someone who's absolutely not a millennial being like, millennials, what's your problem? Either like it's either a
Seriously.
Gen Z who's like millennials, like what the fuck is wrong with you, or a boomer who's like, well, in my day, at your age, like fuck off.
Yeah, no, seriously. Oh, I literally annotated. Hang on, let me find one of my annotations because it's funny. It was a line that I just laughed. What he hadn't expected was the sudden loud fart.
Oh,
The amount of gas in this book, I loved it so much. So much. There's so much food, there's so much alcohol, and
there's
they're
so
just
many
like,
burps and bodily
and
function.
it's like, maybe I shouldn't bottom tonight. Like, I'm pretty sure that's an entire conversation in this
It
because it's
is.
like, I can't based off of what I just ate.
Yes, I also, while you're looking, I'm going to share with everyone. So I am not a gay man. Let me just state that. If you didn't know, I am not a gay man, and I do not primarily have anal sex. That's not uh what typically happens for me. And so my knowledge about anal sex is just it's a bit limited. And there was a moment when where was it? I've prepped is what the line was. And I said, my note was, I need to know what this means. How long do you need to prep? He asked. 10 minutes? And my note is, I gotta learn what you do. And I literally texted Michael. And I was like, hi, I have an incredibly inappropriate question to ask you. Do you mind? And he responded, sure. Actually, let's go to the tape. What did I actually say to him? Because it was, and then he proceeded to very kindly text back and forth with me for like half an hour. And I said, I want to make sure I understand fully what's happening in this book, but don't think I have the terms correct in my brain. He said, if someone says, I prepped, does that mean they cleaned the outside thoroughly? Or does it typically mean an enema or something like that? And Michael went, all of that is correct.
And also, prepping can also include, I believe, like stretching oneself
Yeah.
out so that you don't have to foreplay that portion. And so, like, you and I talked about this a little bit
Yeah.
in girl code. For me, what that means is, are we just shaving the bikini line? Are we
Yeah.
doing a full Brazilian? Are we leaving a little triangle, a landing strip? What are we doing down there? And how much effort do we want to put in?
I think it's funny because, like, fundamentally, I don't agree that, like, women have to wax, but I understand. Also, I think it might be like, if you have a monster dick, you're not going to shove it into a vagina without any, like, prep work either. You're going to, like, get a finger in there to make sure everything's loosened up. So, but it was just very funny, like, back and forth for about half an hour between me and Michael, like, like, what is it for? What is the point? Like, explain. Because if you look up like prepping for anal sex, it doesn't say anything about, number one, I'm looking at, like, I find you primarily medical websites first. It's not like, not crazy. But they don't talk about food or how long you have to eat or anything like that. They just clinically, like, this is what it is and blah, 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 blah. And as someone who hasn't had enough anal sex to be an expert on it, I needed an expert. I needed someone who does it on the regular or regularly throughout the life to make sure that I understood what was happening, which was, I am so grateful to you, Michael, for your time and your texting.
That's awesome. Okay, I found the review. If you
Yes,
want me to
I
read
do.
that, I cannot agree with anything this person says because I wholeheartedly disagree. It says, and I quote, I do think this author, having gone from YA writing to adult, did not handle his characters well, and that they seemed like people in their early to mid 20s and not in their mid to late 30s. Oh, Jace, you might want to stop drinking. I also felt that there were so many sex scenes that did nothing to enhance the story or their relationship, and so much could have been cut out. There's more. There is no reason this book had to be as long as it was. I really liked Farzan's relationship with his family. I wish we had more of that. And I would have enjoyed seeing David and Farzan work together. I thought they would have been a really great team. And I am like, okay, no. Like,
Um,
yes, maybe. Like, I like the, okay, fine, you wanted more of Farzan's family. Great. But, like, what do you mean the sex scenes added nothing to this story? Like,
I
that literally is,
did.
like, those moments is how David, like, you start to see David slowly kind of become unraveled by the fact that he's really falling for Farzan, and Farzan being like, oh God, I like him too much, and this is really gonna hurt when he leaves. And you really get that through these scenes, and to take that out would completely undo what we're moving towards and why this is emotionally building to the point that it does at the end. And it also makes sense as to why Farzan, spoilers, as you said, it's the reason why Farzan says, I can't do this anymore because
Mm-hmm.
he's fallen too
Mm-hmm.
far. And it's the reason why David doesn't want to, but Farzan's like, no, you keep telling me that this is what you want, so you need to go do that. And also, I can't be with you if that's where you're going with it. This is just going to kill me. So, yeah.
I don't like to tell people that they're wrong because feelings are valid. But you're wrong. This is a hookup to friends with benefits to boyfriend's story. Their relationship starts off as sexual. You can't have a relationship that's sexual without the sex scenes. And I think it's exactly what you said. Their connection is through the sex, and by having it and by being intimate with each other, that's how they build their relationship as a whole and really fall for one another. They're fucking wrong. Okay, let's just
Yeah.
put that out there.
Yeah. And
God
also,
fucking damn it.
you can tell in those scenes that David has not had this. He has not
No.
had what him and Farzan has in previous hookups, one night stands, friends with benefits. He has not had what they've had because there is intimacy that
Mm-hmm.
follows. There is connection that happens outside of the bedroom. And so when you start adding all of those pieces up, you start to build emotionally along with the characters. And so when you cut that out, even if you were going to like, I know how you and I both feel about Fade to
Yeah.
Blacks, which is, if you're trying to build this type of story, the intimacy has to be there.
Yeah.
And it helps us move along with the characters and actually feel what they're going through.
Adults have
Um,
sex too. Like
Adults
if you're
have
not
sex.
showing these parts, I think part of the reason why I get so frustrated with Fade to Black and is especially is because often their intimacy is then referred to, but it doesn't feel like we lived it. It
Mm,
feels forced upon us. Like, oh my God, it was amazing. I came 8 times. I'm like, really? Did you? Because I saw the door close and have no idea how he treated you. Did he like hold
mm.
your hand? Did he stare into your eyes? Did his dick feel good? I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
and these
An
are
open
real adult
door does not
parts.
have to, yeah, an open door does not have to be explicit. One of my favorite romance books by a indie author,
Hmm.
it was more about like it was open door, but it was not like his cock blah blah blah. Like it was very much like the emotional connection
Yeah.
that was happening between the two people. So it was like a little green chili pepper, like it was not
Hmm.
spicy. But those scenes were important because the connection was there. And if she had closed the door, you miss all of that. You
Yeah.
miss two characters being the most vulnerable that they can be with each other. And that's what those scenes do. It's not just about like, oh, they're getting off. It's how are they when they are at their most vulnerable and literally naked, like both emotionally and physically,
Physically.
who are they to each other? And I think that that's why these scenes mean so much.
It feels very basic to communicate about sex, but it's not. It's hard. It's complicated. What do I like? What do
Yeah.
I not like? What do you want to do? What do you not want to do? What are you ready for? What are you comfortable with? So in their first hookup, they have this great so sorry. That was not the quote that I was going for, but I'll say it afterwards. Also, they talk about their dicks being average. I loved that. Literally, nice, David said, and Farzan blushed. His dick was pretty average. Like, and that is so fucking beautiful. Like, I love it, especially because David says previously his dick was beautiful, his own, if he did say so himself, but it was average size, not some weapon of ass destruction. And he acknowledges that as a black gay man, he's had partners who've, opened the pants and been like, oh, it's not a monster. Like, no, it's allowed.
Yeah. And
And
I feel like I've read more books where they've started doing that in
mhm,
romance, where
yes.
it's like, if it's too big, I cannot do anything with that. Like,
Mhm.
I don't remember what book it was, but I read a book recently where it was like, that's going to feel really good and I won't be like cross-eyed tomorrow.
Yes.
It's like, do you know what I mean? Like, and I really like that like it doesn't always have to be about that. It's really
Mm-mm.
about the connection and are you attracted to the person? And
We talk about body positivity and body inclusivity in heterosexual romance, and it's often the woman who's plus sized or has what are perceived as flaws or something that she perceives as a flaw or society tells us is not right with her body, and we haven't yet caught up with our men. But I think sometimes we talk about, like, whenever someone says, ooh, a six-pack, I am not picturing a six-pack. Six-packs are not cuddly. They're not cuddly. I don't want a six-pack. But they talk about sex so well in the scene. They were just talking about, Frank goes, should we do condoms for oral? I have banana and strawberry.
yes,
Like,
no, yes,
or
I,
toys. Like, David has toys and says, do you mind if I have a prostate toy in when I'm penetrating you? Like, they're
yeah,
having sex and having anal sex, and David is topping Farzan and says, do you mind if I have a penetrative toy? And Farzan's like, why would I care? And David says, because I've had partners who, oh, wait, it's where he says something about his pussy. And I loved it so much. Something about,
Yes.
like, I have confidence in my pussy. And it made me laugh so on myself. I mean, no, why would I mind? David sighed with relief. I once had a guy ask me, and this is verbatim, if his bussy wasn't tight enough. The sound of Farzan's cackling only stoked the fire in David's belly. Damn, he loved Farzan's laugh. I promise I have the utmost confidence in the integrity of my bussy, Farzan said, though he couldn't make it through the sentence without laughing. Like, that is
It's so good.
so good.
It's
And
so good.
oh, it's so fucking
What I
beautiful.
love about, I've been starting to read more books that feel like this, where these
Mhm.
do not feel like characters. These feel like real people
Yes.
whose story is being told.
Yeah.
And I, it's so good. And you mentioned body positivity, but I want to talk about, there's a moment where Farzan really wants to hold David's head while David is giving him oral.
Are you talking
And
about? Yes.
he
Yes.
does not know if he like
I have that
is really
highlighted.
interested. Yeah, why don't you read that line?
Okay.
Because it's moments like that that this is why reading diversely,
So important.
even within the genre you love, is important.
So this is page 44 for those of you following along at home. He reached for David's hair, felt the soft twists, but then stopped himself. With a white guy, he wouldn't think twice about touching his hair. But with David, he had to make sure. Sorry. David popped off his dick with a suck so hard, Farzan arched off the couch for a second. What? You're fine. Farzan swallowed, breathing hard. I didn't mean to touch her hair without asking. David's eyes crinkled up. You're sweet, but I just had your dick in my mouth. It's all good. And my note is, oh,
But it's so good
it is.
because let's talk about this. You're having sex with somebody, and yes, we are asking for consent, but this also falls under consent.
Yes. One of the things that I am drawn to about romance is how it can teach you skills that the world doesn't teach you, but you're assumed to know. And one of them is how to talk to your partner about sex. And I love what Adib Khorram has done because he's given millennial men examples of how to do it well.
Mm,
Because we were not millennials in general, like millennial women were not taught to how to ask for consent or communicate wants and needs
no.
to their partners. And I am assuming correctly is my guess that it is even more so for millennial men and especially gay men. And so to have people who are modeling the behavior that's so important. Julian Winter's book, Prince of the Palisades, they have a really
Mm,
good conversation, but they're teenagers about consent and talking about it and how important it is. But it's YA, and so they fade to black. There's no on page intimacy. But a book like this could be the eye opening experience for someone who's never felt comfortable saying to a partner, I want condoms, or I like
mm,
prostate stimulation even when I'm fucking you, or I don't like rimming, or whatever it is. And
yeah.
hearing a partner respectfully take that information and follow through with that. This might be the first example of it ever that they've witnessed because so often queer and people of color, the stories we're presented of them are stories of suffering. And that is not this. This is a story of
No,
love
it's
and
not.
joy and celebration and success
Yep.
in so many ways. I fucking love this.
This reminds me of moments in, I don't know if you've read The Prospects.
I haven't. It's
Is it
somewhere.
Katie Hoffman?
Yeah,
I think who wrote that one.
it is.
There
It's
are
somewhere.
moments in that book that don't they do the same thing
Yeah,
in that book that happens in this book
yeah.
around intimacy in the bedroom. And not only that, but then because one of the characters is trans, the other
Hmm.
character um, like asked if they can just be in the bathroom when they're giving themselves their tea shot and just asking
Oh,
questions. And there's
yeah.
like these beautiful moments of just, I want to witness your life.
Hmm.
I don't want you to feel like you have to hide who you are, even in these like small moments. And that, like, it's really powerful because I feel like there are certain things that sometimes we just like, oh yeah, we're reading a book about a trans character, and then we just kind of gloss over that, or it's
Yeah,
like they took their tea shot in the morning and then did blah blah blah. But to have a moment where the person that they are intimate with, that they want to share their life
yeah,
with, actually wants to be a part of every aspect of their life is it's not only beautiful, but it's really important to see that you're being loved for the entirety of who you are and not just segmented pieces. And I think that that's what this book does really well.
if you don't know, Adib Khorram is also incredibly politically and socially conscious. He is very active in Authors Against Book Bans. He's one of the founders, I believe. And I also love the acknowledgement in this book of the AIDS epidemic and the impact that it's had, especially on gay men. And there are two quotes that are two moments about it. One, David has in his spit bucket at home a picture of Ronald Reagan
Oh,
at the
yep, yep.
bottom.
Oh, that's
At
a
the bottom.
great
Mhm.
moment.
And
Yes.
he specifically says, well, let me find it.
Because who does everybody
Oh,
else at the
yes.
bottom? They have orange
I'm gonna write.
face.
It's in page 98. His old wine shop in Chicago had used a photo of a different, more tangerine tinged ex president. This was came out last August. It's really sad.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, he had been awful too. But David loved getting to spit in the face of the president who'd let the AIDS crisis run rampant and killed off a generation of his queer elders. Fuck that guy. And my note is, yup.
Yes.
I typically at this point, I feel like if we haven't talked about sex, I move toward sex, but we've talked about sex a lot and talked about the sex a lot. Is there anything that we haven't talked about in regards to like sex, sexuality, things of that nature that you wanted to know? Because I keep going back through my notes, like, have we hit that point? Have we hit that point? This flirt is so hard. I love it. They flirt so. That's on page 27. I'm
They do
like,
flirt so hard.
David. Are we going to talk about the gay haircut? The gay hair, the not
The
gay hair modes.
the gay haircut
There is the gay
is
haircut.
fantastic.
So,
There is the gay
oh, so
haircut. No, I'm trying to think. Like, it's also interesting because a lot of the things that I notate are in the earlier part of the book, and then
yeah,
I just got so sucked in that I was just,
yeah,
full speed ahead. And usually, I feel like I'll pull out things when they're more problematic, and there just was none of that.
not.
There's
There's
none
just
of it.
there's not
Um,
that. But this was the quote that I had paused on, and it's totally a non sequitur. So I'm just gonna say it and leave it out there, or at this
Yay.
moment. I didn't come here for that. Sure, David chuckled, as if you haven't been staring at my dick in these sweats all night. Farzan hid his face behind his hands. It's like a pendulum. You've dicknetized me.
It's so good.
To be fair,
And also the
like,
sweatpants. Give me a pair of sweatpants on a main male
he's
character, and I'm
commando
done.
in sweatpants on purpose. So, like, yes. You did dickmatize him, which is so funny. No.
Can I
Yes?
I wrote
Yes?
something after reading the going back to the reviews that I read.
Yeah.
I wrote up because there was a lot that I identified with Farzan.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this was about how like this felt like they were more in their mid 20s versus their late 30s. And this is what I said.
Mm-hmm.
As I can tell you, as someone who is turning 40 very soon, I'm turning 40 later this month, that this is actually a great representation of someone in their mid to late 30s. David is going through something. I know a lot of people in their mid to late 30s going through this where they change careers, and I'm one of them. I did this over the last 2 years, and it's really hard to
Mm-hmm.
just pivot and do that. Um, and one of the things that he has to learn now is not just about making money and being the best, it's also about family, connection, and friends. And so his focus throughout the entire thing makes sense. As for Farzan, let me tell you, as someone who grew up feeling a lot like him within his family dynamic, those wounds don't just go away in your mid 20s, they stick around. Farzan is one of the most relatable millennials I've seen in a while, as I sometimes think that people confuse being young and naive with having low self esteem, but low self esteem can happen to anyone and is not specific to age. If anything, it just means that he's held on to those beliefs about himself for longer, and now they become more ingrained into who he believes himself to be by the time he meets David, which totally explains how he acts during the third act of this book. His wounds have stuck around for a really long time, which means they're actually deeper than they would have been in his early to mid 20s. If this had happened to him then, he probably would have bounced back in a very different way than he does now. Um, and as someone who has had has had a ton of careers, I've bounced around. um, this book just hit me in a way that I felt seen, and I wonder if some of the reviews from others who have read this book in their 20s and expect
Mm-hmm.
more of themselves and their peers, and that's more of a reflection of what we tell ourselves we have to be as
Yeah.
opposed to who we actually are. And then nobody has their shit figured out. But
No
outside of the
one.
flaws in this book, they are still responsible adults who love their families and are committed to their work. They want what's best for themselves and for others, and sometimes have taken on too much, and it shows up in ways that they're ashamed of. And I think that that's the part that really stuck with me, is that they are not immature in this book.
No.
They they everything outside of their relationship, they actually have their shit
Yeah.
together. Do you know what I mean? It's not like,
Yes.
oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay rent. I'm going to have to
Yeah.
move back in with my parents. Like, it's
They
none
live
of those
alone. They live
things. They live
independently.
alone.
Like David owns his house. Like we're solid
He can buy
humans.
food and wine, like in this economy, that
Yeah.
means a lot.
It's good.
Yeah.
This book, I think this book was so, so beautiful and so romantic. And it felt like I agree with you. It felt really healing in a lot of ways to see, because when we were younger, I felt like, oh, movies like 10 Things I Hate About You, early movies about like people in their mid 20s that we were seeing, early 20s that we were seeing come out in the early 2000, like 2000 to 2010-ish time period, really talked about the potential that millennials had. And then 2008 happened and everything was fucked. And so there are so many of us, going back to that millennial burnout, who were promised a future that didn't happen and prepared the first 2+ decades of their life for something that certainly wasn't around by the time we got to adulthood, but realistically never existed in the first place. And have had to pivot into something completely different from what
Yeah.
we expected. It's like being raised to be a monarch. This is a weird analogy, go with me, but being raised to be a monarch, but by the time you reach adulthood, you've been overthrown and you're no longer part of the system.
Yeah.
And what do you do with your life next? And that's, I think, in a lot of ways, what does it feel like to be a millennial, and what does it feel like to find partners and to date? We were raised to date by meeting people, and then online dating happened, and now you're supposed to determine whether or not you're a good fit before you even smell the person. Like, do I like how you smell? I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you like how I smell? You can't know these things.
Do you brush your teeth?
Do you,
Do you know what I mean?
like, I mean, I was going more for like an animalistic. Do my pheromones and your pheromones match up? But also, yes.
Do you practice simple hygiene?
Yeah. Do you practice simple hygiene? Do your pants fit? Do you scratch your like? We maybe zooms, but like, are you actually scratching your balls? Like, I don't know how weird you are. What are the vibes? And in some ways, vibes were so much easier. It was so much easier to like date in high school and college when you could look across the room or the dorm or the house party or whatever it was and be like, that guy or girl is great and I like them. Like, you knew from that person, and then I like them on a basic level. I enjoy their shape and their smells, and then I can see if the words that come out of their mouth make me want to scream. And I think did you ever meet someone you're like, you're beautiful and I love you, and then I've had a conversation with you, I'm like, I could have had a better conversation with rocks. Like, rocks would have been preferable.
Would have been better.
Rocks would have been better because then I wouldn't have heard what came out of your mouth. But that's how we were raised. We were raised around people, to talk to people, in classrooms, to socialize, and then suddenly we're supposed to find a partner on the internet. What?
Yeah.
We weren't raised to do any of this shit.
I know. I will say it's so fascinating to me how much has changed, but we're still trying to connect on the same level. It's just that, like,
I'm noticing that none of the romance novels that I really love are, I swiped right and he swiped right and then we met up and it was great. That's not how I think the fantasy of romance exists anymore. It's still that I find I saw them at the bar and they were the most beautiful man I've ever seen in there. Can I just say I love how hot for each other they are, how much they are attracted to each other. Any last comments about this book besides everyone should read it?
maybe grab your favorite glass of wine when you decide to sit down with this.
I love it. My statement is that the second book in the series comes out this year. There's more to come.
I'm excited for that one.
There's more to come. Thank you. No, I'm not thanking you yet because I have my questions. This is the first time you've been on the podcast, which means
Also,
you are subjected
really,
to my questions. Yes.
Also, and I know this because you already did this with Caitlin, but we cannot discuss how we met each other through reading, but also knew each other from way before that.
Oh my God, this is funny. So I re-met Lisa the same night I met Caitlin. We were in line at Nisha J. Tooley's signing, and the three of us start talking. And I'm looking at Lisa. I'm like, I know her.
I'm looking at you and I'm going, yep.
I know her. And it turns out we knew each other from work stuff that we did years before.
Like 2012. 2013.
2012. Yeah, like over a decade before. And hadn't seen each other in over a decade, but had been Facebook friends because we're old.
Yeah, and we're still Facebook.
We're still Facebook friends. And I think I said, I know your maiden name, like in my mind, it was your maiden name. And finally we'd gotten through the whole signing line. We'd gotten through buying more books. We were
We were
standing
standing outside.
outside the store after the whole event finished, the three of us chatting. And finally, I don't remember who said it first, but like, did you do this? Like, do I know you
Yep.
from this? And
Yep.
then it all came rushing back. And so we've known each other for more than a decade, but
We're also both
became,
theater people.
we're
We're
both
both
theater
from the
people.
we're from the same state originally.
Yeah.
Like,
We're
yeah.
not, there are a lot of connections. But really reconnected about a year ago at this book event.
Yep. Yeah.
One of my book
Yep.
spouses.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because like I met Caitlin very randomly
Yeah,
too at another book signing event. And we've been like friends ever since. I sold her my Taylor Swift ticket.
I love it.
Because I met her at
Yes,
an
that's
Abby
right.
Jimenez event. Yeah. Yep.
And it's so funny because when we told her that we were doing this book, Caitlin had read it months ago and
She
she
read it.
was so mad that she's not here because she loves this book so much.
She does. So she and I flew to Minnesota to see
Rebecca
Rebecca
Yaros.
Yaros, and she was reading this on the
Mm-hmm.
plane, I think there and back.
Yeah,
And I remember
because
looking
that was
over at her and
before Love
like,
Y'all. But we have some follow-up question. We have some closing questions. And by we, I mean the royal we here at JC's Romance. They are mean. I apologize, but I don't apologize. But the first one
go
is,
for it.
what is your favorite romance novel?
It's definitely Ashley Poston. And I know everybody tends to like 7 Year Slip, but my favorite is Dead Romantics. I
Love it.
love the Dead Romantics. It is so good.
Mm-hmm.
And I cried when I met Ashley Poston and I started talking about the book because that book made me feel things that I felt very seen in that book. I just really connected with the main character in a way that I don't think I have since. So that's kind of like my heart book.
I love that. Oh, this is such a not as exciting question, but where/how do you prefer to read?
I am now like 90% of my books, unless they are arcs or I
Mm-hmm.
get a copy in the mail before it comes out. Because sometimes like indie authors will send their books out early
Yeah,
and I will devour them like a week before.
yeah.
I'm audiobooks. I always have my
Hence why they were
my
at
pods
4%.
in. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, like my story graph this year, I'm at like 109 books so far this year,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I'm at like 92% or 94% is audiobooks.
Wow. So here at JC's Romance, we have this concept called comfy sexy, and it is based in the idea that in your comfiest space, your safest space, you can still explore your sexuality by reading a romance. What does the phrase comfy sexy evoke for you?
Why? But the first thing that came to my head is friends to lovers. Like any
Aww,
book that is friends to lovers, that there is something really safe but also sexy about trusting somebody because you've known them for so long, but then experiencing this completely different side of them.
I love that. Follow up to it. Where/when do you feel your sexiest?
I somehow feel the most sexy when I am like out of my normal habits. So this often happens when we go on vacation somewhere, and it doesn't even
Mm-hmm.
have to be anywhere crazy. It's literally just getting out of our normal routine.
Yeah.
I feel like that somehow makes me, because I feel like I'm living more in the moment. And so therefore I feel just more comfortable about everything.
Yeah,
And I kind of get out of my head. Yeah.
that's great. Okay, last question. If you could share anything about sex and sexuality with the people listening to this, you might call this your
Ooh.
soapbox thing. What would you want women to know?
So I was going to actually say, and I don't know that this applies to every woman,
Mm-hmm.
but I think part of it is I am bi. And so something that I like to talk to people about is that, bi people actually exist. And we exist outside of media. We exist outside of villainy. That is often how we are portrayed. And given that it's Pride Month, is that we also exist in this weird space sometimes where we don't feel straight enough and we don't feel queer enough. And so to anyone who also feels that way, I see you, and I respect you. And also, there are so many books now in romance
Yeah.
that let us be seen. And I would encourage you to find those books, and to also understand that our bi brothers sometimes face the same and different biphobia than we do. But I also think that that's important for anyone, is
Yeah.
to understand their own sexuality and then understand how your sexuality interacts with other sexualities. So even if you're straight, even if you're queer, if you're bi, any of those things, that learning about other people's sexualities or reading books about people who identify differently than you. I
Mm-hmm.
know a lot of queer people who love to read straight romance. I know a lot
Yeah.
of gay women who love romance. And I think what's really interesting is that books give us the safety to experience things, to discover things about ourselves through people who are different than us.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't just mean culturally, racially, it also is in how you identify both sexually and in gender.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know if if that made sense, but I
It
just,
did. If people wanted to follow along with all the audiobooks that you are reading, where can they
yes,
find you on the internets?
of course. I'm pretty sure on every platform I am toasty.reads.books.
It will be in the show
So you can
notes.
find me on Instagram. You can find me on Goodreads, Storygraph. I did have a TikTok and it is under that, but I got rid of TikTok. So
So
yeah.
don't.
So my stuff is still up there, but I'm not on there.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for reading this book with me, for coming here to talk, to share your thoughts. I have loved all the times that we get to talk about books, but I think it's different when we're reading the same book around the same time, because I feel like we're often playing catch up with what the other has read, and it's been months since we've read the same book.
I
And this
completely
was really
agree.
special. Thank you
It
so
was.
much.
Thank
I
you for
hope,
having
oh, of
me.
course, everyone go read this book. Go pre-order the second. Bye, y'all. Jace Reads Romance is a 3 Paws Productions podcast, produced by Seffi, edited by Michael Achenbach. Our theme song is written and performed by Diana Weishauer. For show notes and more, head to www.jacereadsromance.com. That's JAYCE Reads Romance. Follow us on socials at Jace Reads Romance everywhere. For more exclusive content, visit us on Substack, where you'll find extended episodes, bonus episodes, and more. Have a question, story, or a book recommendation you know I'll love? Email Jace at jacereadsromance.com or call and leave a voicemail at 661-JACE-RR. That's 661-529-2377. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. And as always, this is Jace, holding space for you.